Welcome to the GenTwenty podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're going to be talking about self-care. What does that mean? Is it too commercialized? And what is a self-soother exactly? And how do all these things relate to each other?
Okay, so what is self-care? Does it mean to just literally take care of yourself, or is there a deeper meaning behind the word?
So I feel like how I see it is that there are kind of two levels of self-care. Like there's surface level self-care, which a lot of times involves the physical aspects of things we need to do to take care of ourselves, like take a shower, take your medicine, um I don't know, doing things that make you feel good, and maybe that's like putting makeup on, exercising, seeing your friends. Like those are kind of like outward self-care things. And then there's internal self-care, which is, more related to your mental health and is often, I think, the deeper self-care that a lot of people who are really opposed to surface level self-care like to dig into when they're talking about self-care. So that a lot of the time is like saying no to things that don't serve you, ending toxic relationships, not continuing to do things that you don't want to do. And that's how I see it. It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. What do you think?
I completely agree. When I think of the word self-care, the first image that comes to mind is like a woman pouring a glass of wine and putting on a face mask, which is definitely self-care. But it's not the face mask that's making her feel better. It's the time she's taking to put that mask on. It's like the time she's devoting to herself. And so for me, self-care is all about, yeah, it's about taking care of yourself. It's saying no. It's doing the hard stuff, that like eating a salad because it's like nutritious and healthy is self-care, because you're fueling your body with good food. And going to therapy where you might cry and have to deal with hard emotions, that's self-care, because you're learning to process and go through the things that have hurt you. So long story short, yeah, I think self-care is about putting yourself before others' needs so that you can be healthy and happy and better take care of your people, your friends, your family. Because it's kind of like we talked about this with boundaries, but if you aren't able to take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of someone else.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think that it's important, whether it is some of the surface level stuff that we're doing, like face masks or, drinking wine or just taking time out of our schedule to just relax, which is something we don't do enough of. But I think that's important because it's
Mm-hmm.
signaling to yourself that you are important and you matter. And what you're giving to yourself, most importantly, is time and space. And I personally think that that's a really important part of self care. And jumping off of that, I think that the term self care is really a big buzzword now in marketing, especially. And it's become very commercialized in order to sell products, obviously. And I think sometimes some of those things are like pushing boundaries in terms of what self care means and how it should be interpreted. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard because you can go to a store and see, again, like a spa package, and it's like self-care for mom, which
Mm-hmm.
is great. Like, you should feel beautiful about yourself and you should take care of yourself, but spending money won't make you feel better. So I think a good way to figure out if you're giving yourself true self-care is if you could do it for free, because it's like that trope of like money can buy happiness. That's not true. And so if you're seeing something advertised as a self-care product, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, if I'm spending this money, will this thing make me feel better? And if it's no, then it's not. That's just like using the word to sell product. But if it's like going to the library and picking out a book for free is self-care for me, because it's me taking time to get off my phone, to be by myself, to recharge, to explore a new world. And that's like self-care, because again, it's the time. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really interesting litmus test, I think, because especially in terms of like I'm thinking a lot of, like, bath products or, like, skincare
Mhm.
products and stuff like that, like, I mean, I love a good bath bomb, of course, like, I but does that mean that I enjoy a bath more when there is a bath bomb, like, at the core essence of what a bath means to me? No, I don't, because it makes it a nicer experience, yes, but the point is that I'm taking time for myself away from my phone and stuff like that, and, I mean, I just take a book into the bath, and, I mean, sometimes it might be a 20-minute bath and pre-children more than an hour, but that's not the
Mhm.
case anymore. But, I mean, that's a totally different conversation. But, yeah, I mean, I think that it's like, is this product actually enhancing my self-care is a good litmus test in the way that you're going to be using that product. Because also in terms of, like, journals, for example, like, having a beautiful journal isn't going to help you write more effective things in the journal.
Girl, preach. Do you know how many journals I own? And do you know how many of them are empty? 99%. The 99% of my journals are empty.
Yeah.
And I found this really ugly journal that was in the back of my closet, but it has great lines and paper texture. And that is the one I
Oh,
choose to
yes.
write in every day. It's not beautiful, but it gets the job done. And again, it's the
Mhm.
time I'm devoting to just like sitting quietly on my patio and thinking, writing out these thoughts that are racing around in my head.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand the word self-care because it has become such a buzzword. And
Mhm.
you know, there's articles on BuzzFeed, there's products on Amazon, there's products to be bought or purchased, or I think kind of we're always chasing that one thing that, oh, once we do that thing, we'll be fine, we'll feel better. But self-care is a process and you continuously have to do it. It's not just like, oh, you get your hair cut and you're good for 3 months. It's
Mhm.
you have to work at it every day. And
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people are afraid to admit that they need that or that they want that because they don't want to feel like there's anything wrong with them. And there's not. It's just everyone needs to unwind and take a minute to themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things, they're really more self-soothers. I've seen that term used a lot, and what I think of a self-soother, it's definitely something that kinda makes you feel good in the short term, like, it's kind of like putting a pretty Band-Aid on
Yes,
something that
exactly.
needs, more intensive treatment,
Yeah.
whatever that might be, and, yeah, I mean, does that mean there's anything wrong with these things? No, not necessarily, but I think looking at them through the lens of, "This item is not going to solve my problem," is extremely important, and it walks a really fine line right now, I think, in terms of how people think about self-care and what true acts of self-care are.
Yeah. Like a self-soother, the perfect way for me to think about it is the Parks and Rec phrase treat yourself
Mhm.
because it's all about like being really lavish and giving yourself exactly what you want, which is awesome. And that is what self-care is without the financial burden, but a self-soother is like, oh, I just really want this bracelet. And like if you want that bracelet and it's not going to put you out of house and home, you should get that bracelet. Or for me, French fries. I really love French fries and they make me happy. And it's a self soother in that I always look forward to them. I'm always happy I ate them, but it's not going to like keep me going until I'm 100. So,
Yeah, the french fries are not gonna solve your problems. The
right,
bracelet is not gonna solve your problems,
right. But
you
like
know?
getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, taking time to yourself, that is going to help you resolve the problems you have.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so self-soothers aren't bad, but I think people have to recognize the difference of like cheering yourself up and healing a pain.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think self-care it's another thing that actually requires work on your end. Like most like deep level self-care means getting really uncomfortable, I think,
Mhm.
and it's easier to slap a self-soother on that because it's not always so easy to say that you need an hour a day to yourself, whether it's, because of your parents, your family, your friends, your children, like to, tell them that you need this time for you it can feel really uncomfortable because you don't want them, necessarily to feel like you're not also prioritizing them, or like that you feel like you're so much more important than they are, because I mean, we all have needs and we're all out here working with each other
Mm-hmm.
to figure them out, and it is a balance, I think. But I don't know, it's really important to take that time and do the deep hard work. So I feel like you can really tell that you're approaching a moment in your life that is true self-care when you feel uncomfortable having to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
A perfect example, today we had our call scheduled to record. And as I was setting up my mic, a friend texted me and said, "Hey, we're group FaceTiming. Do you want to join?" And I couldn't because of our time constraint, but also the thought of getting on one more video conference made me want to crawl out of my skin. So I said no. And I said, I miss you guys, but let's catch up in a couple weeks because I need more time to myself. Like it's just been constant talking. And
Mhm.
that's uncomfortable to say because I don't want my friends to think that I'm not there for them or that I don't care. It's just what I need right now is more alone time more often. And that's taking care of yourself, is saying, "Hey, I need this." It's not going to always be a popular thing.
Yeah, it's like I think understanding that need that you have and respecting it enough, creating a boundary around it. And it is uncomfortable to tell people that no, you don't, want to do something, or because I mean, it's not really, I guess it could be about can't, but can't and want, I feel like in this kind of situation are pretty much the same thing, I think. Um,
Yeah, another good way to look at it, kind of based on that, is should I be doing this or do I want to be doing this? The whole
mm,
balance between should versus want is, to me, the ultimate self care. Is like you should be doing what you want to be doing, not what you think you should be doing.
mm. Yeah, that's a really good point too, because it's like, well, like, all right, to think about going to therapy, because that is a huge act of self care for a lot of people. And it's like, do you want to go to therapy all the time?
No,
Yeah.
the answer
But
is no.
should you go to therapy?
Yes, the answer is yes. That's a great point. It's so okay. So my litmus test doesn't work all the time, but
No, I'm just thinking about it really interestingly in a way, because like sometimes when you're telling other people no, like you might not also like actually want to tell them no, like you might actually want to hang out with your friends, but deep down, under that deeper level of self-care,
mhm.
that you need time to yourself. And it is this balance of like should and want constantly, and like they're always competing with each other, and sometimes they're in alignment and sometimes they're not. And in a lot of ways, it's really up to us in each situation to figure out what is most important. Because sometimes I want to stay up and watch Netflix. I do. It doesn't happen very often, but I do want to do that sometimes. But like, I know that the next morning I'm going to be miserable. And what I need to do and should do is go to sleep. And it's really hard to make yourself do that at 11 o'clock at night when you just want to watch TV.
It's. I mean, why do you think I had to delete TikTok from my phone?
Oh,
Because
I'm in the same spot.
I wanted to watch it until 1 a.m., but I did not feel good the next day. And I don't know, those little 30-second clip videos and songs do something to your brain, I swear.
I know they do,
We could have a
but they're
whole
so
episode on
good. They're
that.
so good. Just on TikTok.
Yeah, let's do that next.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. I just think it's really really interesting that like acts of self-care can look different every day. And sometimes you are needing to respect the surface level self-care, and then sometimes you are really having to respect the deep level self-care where the should and want part of you are in competition. So like some
Yeah.
days self-care might look like you getting up and actually putting an outfit on because you've been in your pajamas 5 days in a row, and you're just feeling kind of like a lump and kind of bad about yourself. But getting dressed, and that can appear like surface level self-care, getting ready. But a lot of times for me it's like I'm facing the day. I'm showing up for myself, and like
Mhm.
that looks like putting clothes on,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think a lot of times the self-care we do are things that you would surprise you, because we've talked about it several on a couple of podcasts and here too. Taking a bath is self-care. It's doing something for yourself. It's relaxing, it's soothing. And that's, I think, the poster child of self-care. But like you said, it's putting pants on, it's putting jewelry on if you like to wear jewelry, it's going to therapy and like putting boundaries on things so that you can prioritize yourself. Like,
Mhm.
there's no one way to do it, and the ways we do it may surprise people or may cause them to say, "Oh, that's just living." And you're like, "Well, yeah, I'm living a good life. I'm taking care of
Yeah.
myself."
And today that's what I have to do. And yeah, I think it's definitely important to recognize that there are differences and like ebbs and flow in what self-care is. And I think while self-soothers tend to be the really commercialized version of self-care, I don't think that necessarily means that they're bad. Um but I do think that it is up to us as individuals to look more deeply into what we truly need and what's making us uncomfortable and unhappy, and like what we need to do to honor ourselves and to perform at our best and our desired optimal performance, basically.
Yes, exactly that. Here's another example for you. I'm working on a novel and doing freelance gigs and enjoying all of it. And this past week, I have had such bad word block. And every time I sat down to work on my pages for my novel, I just couldn't get anything out. And I have ideas, like I know what I want to happen in my story, but I just was blocked. And so I looked at my to-do list and was like, okay, thinking if I can't write, I can do other productive things. And I just, I was cleaning my room, I was emptying out the garage, I was working on other freelance projects and being pretty productive, and realized I still didn't feel better. I still felt this like anxious need to go write and work on pages for my novel. Otherwise, it wouldn't get finished. And then finally I said, well, what I really want to do is watch Netflix and drink tea and sit in bed, even though it's 1 p.m. And I did that. And I did it for an hour and a half and took that time to just veg out. And then I journaled and realized why I was feeling roadblocked. And if I hadn't taken that time to relax, stop my brain from freaking out, and then process through my emotions, I would still be like deep into cleaning my garage 5 days later. So
Mhm.
I think sometimes we have to say, even though we really want to be productive and we really want to just get things done, we have to say no to that and say yes to like what will feed our productivity in the long run.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And it's kind of like looking at, because what you wanted to do was work, and what you should have done was taken a break because that was the self-care that you
Mhm.
needed. And I
Exactly.
mean, these two things are kind of in constant competition, and it's sort of figuring out which one you need to listen to. So, I mean, in this case, like you were feeling really blocked from getting this work done, but it's because you needed to break and let yourself regroup and get back to it.
Mhm. And in case anyone out there needs to hear it, you're allowed to take breaks. You don't have to wait until you're exhausted or burnt out or sad or whatever to take a break.
Yeah, and
Like,
take them
and
regularly.
yeah, schedule them in, because
And don't
I
feel like you have to work during your break. Like you don't need to be on your phone. You don't, do something that is going to fill up your cup, and make you feel like you and something that you love to do.
Amen. Okay, friends. So we're going to leave you with this. Do something to fill up your cup. Do something hard. Take a break.
Ask yourself the difference between what you should do and what you want to do today, and which part of yourself you need to honor.
All right. Well, guys, we'll see you next week.